Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the architecture of Deus Ex Mankind Divided. So now we are in the second DLC where we are going to visit a Palisade Blade. Remember that thing on the skyline, that the big cantilever thing? Yeah, we're going inside one of those. Although the scale of it seems to be a little bit off. Anyway, doesn't really matter. We start once again in the subway station. Let's go out into the city streets. There is a little bit of city streets in this DLC, but it's not much, and there's nothing particularly interesting, although it does allow us to see the Palisade Blade from the outside, right? So anyway, we step out of the subway station, and immediately we have a Palisade Bank building in front of us. So this is another giant block of concrete. Not as big as the other branch, but still big and featureless and grey and heavy and oppressive. There appears to be a water curtain down the side. I'm not sure how this works. The water apparently sticks to the concrete. I think they're supposed to be suggesting that the surface tension of the water holds the water against the building. I'm not sure that would actually work, by the way. There seems to be too much water here for that to work. Yeah, I'm not sure who they're trying to fool, but I don't really believe this works. This seems physically dubious. It's not actually that much water. I don't think. I think the water's... Is the water like behind glass? It's not, right? No, it's just on the surface. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that doesn't work. Anyway, the Palisade Bank building, the front of it looks like this. So I was thinking what it looks like, right? It looks like a whale, doesn't it? It looks like the mouth of a whale, and it's gonna come in to eat you, right? This giant, whale, a giant whale, big grey concrete whale eating the customers.
Fucking asshole.
And then the blade itself is like a tail. It's funny. So that's the building of the Palisade Bank. We'll go inside later. For now, let's look around the city streets. There's more modern buildings, I think, than in the main part of Prague. There's a modern building there, and also the facades are less uniform. We might be outside the historic city center, although there are still some old Gothic towers. So I'm not sure. There's still old Gothic towers, but you know, Prague itself, like you have streets, and then you have a fairly uniform row of buildings, and they're all kind of the same height, and they're all kind of the same rhythm. Whereas here, there seems to be some like the shapes aren't, you know, like the facades aren't flush. They're all different heights. So either they're just breaking away from what the real Prague looks like, or they're suggesting that we are outside the historic center of the building. Not sure, but it looks a lot less like Prague, right? It appears to be pedestrians only. There's no roadway, and then outside the bank there's interesting sculpture thing here. There's the lights in the ground, water underneath the floor apparently. I'm not sure where the water goes. And we have a cafe there. Okay, so let's look at the Palisade Blade from the outside. You can walk right up to the river's edge. Oh, this is interesting. Hold on. What's the skyline? Oh, they just messed up the skyline? So, yeah, no, they messed up the skyline. Remember that? That part? Can I draw my... So we saw those three buildings in Prague. So they just recycled. They recycled the texture. Because The Palisade Blade should be facing the other way. Actually, no, look at that. No, look at that. Look. It's just, they're just repeating the same thing over and over again. Look at those three. Circular, that thing, and then the pointy thing. And then there's the circular thing, and that thing, and the pointy thing. And then there is the circular thing, and that thing, and the pointy thing. They're just taken the same image and just repeated it. So, yeah. So we don't know where we are. They completely fudged that. It's not real. Yeah, like that building there is that building there. It's the same thing. Oh man, this is they just they're not trying very hard. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So in order to like get a realistic Prague skyline, you would have to send somebody to Prague and take photos. And obviously they didn't have enough money for the DLC to pay somebody to take a plane, fly to Prague, take some pictures, and then fly back. So they didn't have enough money to pay for that. So they just didn't just copy and pasted the skyline. That's a shame. Alright, so the blade, we can see that it comes out of the water, right? We have the diagonal bit and then the big cantilever. And then it goes under the water. So it's like a castle. You know, a castle has a moat, and the moat defends the castle. So this thing kind of has a moat. It sits in the water. In order to get to the blade, you have to get across the water. And then the bank building is back there. So presumably, under the water, those two things join together, right? Okay, very cool. There's still no, like we're closer up, but there's no clear indication of what the structure of this is. In fact, there are windows. Oh, is that a big steel beam under the window? Not sure. Let me just check. Okay, that's a pipe. Well, I think there's a big steel beam under the window there. Look at that. Is it a steel beam? Or is it not? Maybe it's not a big steel beam. There's the pipe. Maybe it's just the other wall. Yeah, no, this. What I'm trying to say is, it doesn't look like there's enough space for a strong enough structure to hold that up. But yeah, I don't know. We'll come back to this. We'll come back to this later on. Alright, walking around. The city streets are not that interesting. There are some buildings that you can go into. So the cafe we can go into, it's under renovations, so we can't really see what it looks like finished. But there's like a bar. I guess it's like a seating area. There's toilets over there. Nothing remarkable. And then around here, we can't go into any of those buildings. There is like a modern building there. Again, very out of place in Prague. Back behind here, there's some side streets. There's like a bar back there. This is a restaurant here. None of this is interesting enough to really talk about. Restaurant? We have an interesting ceiling. Restaurant seating. Let me just check this ceiling. What's going on there? Is this decorative? I mean, you could hide ventilation in there, like ducts. And there might be, but we can't see it. Kitchen back here? There's no pantry, there's no storage. I don't know where they store their food. But there's a kitchen and a dining area. And that's the restaurant. This is an apartment building. It's a historic building. That's been renovated. Well, actually, it looks kind of old on the inside too. I'm not sure brick would do that. Bricks definitely wouldn't do that. You really do need something holding up the bricks, right? Usually you would have maybe a concrete beam and then the bricks would sit on top of the beam. Or you would have like an arch, and then the bricks would sit on top of the arch. Bricks just doing that, that's not how bricks work. So bricks, they're good in compression, they're very bad in tension. So if you just kind of, if you have bricks like this, you just kind of pull the thing apart, it comes apart very easily. So the strength of bricks is in compression. If you try to compress a brick, it's quite strong. If you pull a brick, it breaks very easily. And you know, under there, that's the beam is trying to bend down like this, and so the bottom of the beam is the bottom of the beam is trying to pull apart, and so this is in tension, and that would just, the bricks would just fall down. They just pull apart and fall down. So that's not how bricks work. And when I say that, I'm not just saying it for the hell of it, right? I'm saying it because it tells us that the designers, the level designers, don't understand architecture, they don't understand structure. And in fact, somehow it's concrete on this side and brick on this side. Which doesn't make any sense. Because it's brick in there. Right. So anyway, we don't have any real architects working on this. Oh, and there's a... back here, there's a police truck. But there's no clear indication where the truck, how the truck gets in here. The only place that can get in here is through this gate, I guess. But there's a chair there, and the chair seems to be bolted down. There's no road access. If you look around, like it's all just buildings. That's the only possible place for the truck to get in here. But there's a permanent chair there. Oh, there's no road exits. The roads don't go anywhere. Anyway, over here we have a wine shop. Ventilation ducts up there. Wine does need temperature control to maintain quality. Alright, very fancy. And then the other side of the bank. This big ugly air conditioning, or like a ventilation fans there. I think that's there purely for gameplay. Because look, the whole aesthetic of Palisade Bank is one giant block of concrete, right? But the problem with just a giant block of concrete is that there's no way for you to climb up there for gameplay purposes. And so they put this thing here so you can like climb up there. I think you can actually like squeeze in here. Let me just try and... no. Okay, you can't squeeze in there. But you can get up there, there's a ladder there. So this is for gameplay reasons, and they just made the architecture super ugly by putting a giant ventilation fan on the side of the building, completely ruining the aesthetic of the concrete block of the Palisade Bank. Oh man. They are prioritizing gameplay over architecture, but we've seen this throughout the entire game, right? Okay, so let's get inside the bank. Let's go into the giant maw of the concrete whale. Look how grey, look how depressing this thing is. It's just dark grey. Alright, inside the bank. The lobby, we have the high contrast, black and white again. Very somber. We've seen this in the other Palisade Bank building. We do have that water under the ground again. I still don't know why. And it's actually probably a bad idea to have water down there. Because what's gonna happen is you're gonna have things get caught in there, like rubbish, small animals, insects. Like, how do you get them out? Like if like a bunch of cockroaches crawl in there, fall in the water, drown, and then you just floating cockroaches inside the water, under the floor, and you can see them because it's glass. So this is... I don't know how they're gonna solve that problem, but when you have it, like, gotta think about maintenance whenever you do something like this, right? Like, imagine like dead rats, they fall in the water, they drown, they can't get back out again, and they're just dead rats in the water. Oh, that's disgusting. So yeah, so I mean, it's when you think about features like this, you gotta think about maintenance. So I'm dubious about this, the water under the floor like that. And the glass would have to be quite strong, right, to hold up that. When you have a planter, it's not just the planter. There's the planter, there's the plants, and there's the soil, right? So these planters are heavy, and they're just sitting on the glass like that. Yeah, no, I have doubts. I have doubts about all of this. And I don't know why they bother either. What is this supposed to signify? Like, what is it supposed to... What does it mean to have water under a glass floor like this? I don't know. It seems pointless. Okay, so we get past here. There are security gates here, right? So this is the first layer of security, is the lobby. There's cameras, security gates. Past that, and then we're in the elevator lobby. It's black, high contrast lighting, black and white, and dark grey. And then we go down to the Atrium, first floor. So remember how the bank looked like on the outside, right? On the outside, the big concrete wall is basically a single floor. I mean, it's tall, but we're going down from the building. So now we're underground. And we have that. Whoa! Alright, check that out. So you go down underground, and then there's a big cavernous space in the middle. What do we have to say about this? So we are now in the underwater part, or maybe the underground part. At some point we get into... So we're under the river, and it's one big space. Impressive, huh? So we're in the underwater foundation. There's a lot of concrete down at the bottom, which makes sense because the Palisade Blade is a big cantilever, right? There's a big long cantilever out here. So the base is a big heavy foundation, big heavy concrete foundations to anchor the cantilever into the ground, right? The rest of the structure, we don't see much of it. Like, we see that, but that's quite thin. If I kind of get a gun out. So there's very thin steel trusses. And that's not really enough to hold... Got steel trusses up there. There's thin steel trusses... Oh, are the cables going the right way? Cables going that way, cables down there... No, the cables are kind of in the wrong place. The cables would be in the right place if it wasn't a giant cantilever. How should I explain this? So when you have like a truss, the cables, they're good in tension, they're bad in compression because it's like a rope, right? You pull it and pull it tight and it's like strong, but if you push the rope, there's no strength. And so it's something you pull, the cable. And usually when you have a beam, the beam is trying to fall like this, And so if you have a rectangular beam and you bend it like this, the bottom part is pulling further apart and the top part is crushing together, right? So that's how a beam breaks. So when you have a beam, you need tensile strength down the bottom and compressive strength up the top. And so if you look at that beam, the cable, which is the tensile strength, is down the bottom, and then up there presumably there's a strong steel bit, and that's the top. Well, actually no, there's a strong steel bit down there as well, which doesn't make any sense because there's like compression and tension together, and then nothing up there, which doesn't make any sense. Is that meant to be a truss? I don't know. That's messy. So anyway, that doesn't make any sense. So the cable's on the bottom. You're thinking, okay, that's right, but this is not a normal beam. This is a giant cantilever. So the cantilever is actually trying to fall this way, and so actually the tensile, it's pulling apart at the top and pushing together at the bottom, because it's trying to bend like this. So it's not bending like that. It's bending like this, not the other way around. Does that make sense? Because it's a big cantilever. And so what you expect is, you know, if you have a diagonal thing, you're trying to pull it, up, you would pull the top and push the bottom to turn it that way to resist that. Like you're trying to resist it turning that way, and so you're trying to pull it back up that way. So you have to pull this side and push the other side. So you need cables at the top, struts down the bottom, and then you're kind of pushing and pulling, right, like that. That doesn't do anything. Like this doesn't really make any sense either way. I don't know what that is. Yeah. So that structure, I don't know what it does. And in fact, there's no visible structure for the big cantilever at all. There's these big pipes. These are liquid pipes. So that says cold. That is cold, and that's hot. So I think those are the pipes for the liquid cooling. So the data volts are liquid cooled, and the fluid, presumably water, is being pumped up there and then pumped back down there. So those are for cooling purposes, and then these columns and that structure is only holding up the pipes, which if the pipes were filled with water, they'd be pretty heavy, right? And so they do need structure. But what's even heavier is the whole blade itself, and there's nothing clearly holding up the entire blade. I mean, you can say, oh, the concrete walls are holding up. Yeah, but how thick are the walls? We don't know how thick the walls are. And there's no structure in the middle, so you're relying only on the side walls. And if you're only relying on the side walls, then this structure seems too thin. Because remember, we're not just in atmosphere, we're under the water. So you have like water pressure pressing down as well. I'm just like, this structure doesn't seem strong enough for all those things combined, right? The big cantilever plus the water pressure plus the size of it, it just doesn't seem strong enough. I would like to see those as like solid beams and significantly thicker, just so that it looks like the thing is holding itself up, as opposed to whatever the hell it's doing now, which is not very much. Yeah, okay. So the structure's missing, but otherwise, very cool. I think this is the first time we had a big, monumental architecture in the game. I mean, the Utelek is pretty big, but you never really step back and see a lot of it at once. It's good to see they bring this back into Deus Ex. Because there were like there was Panchaea and there was Hengsha back in the first game, back in Human Revolution. There was just like big monumental architecture. Alright, so here's this. I like the scale of it. And then inside this big atrium space, there's that thing. That's the security building. And then we have to get behind there to get up into the blade. Alright, let's walk around. Well, first of all, concrete. I guess it's just concrete. Concrete, and then up ahead we have this stuff. There's like metal, and like those railings look very industrial. Like those, look at that. Oh, very industrial aesthetic. So I was thinking this looks like a high-tech factory. So they're going for that look, it appears. A lot of like a metal and glass and industrial. Up front we have a bit of a seating area for guests. And then over here, first of all, a meeting room. So I guess if you're not a VIP, this is as far as you get. You come in here, the staff comes and meets you, and then you leave. You don't get to go any further into the building. On the other side we have toilets. And the toilets are copy and pasted. It's the same texture again. That same ceiling, same stone walls. This is the same toilet as from the TF-29. They just copy and pasting the toilet every time. I don't know why they don't, because they spend time designing everything else. Why don't they spend time designing the toilets? You might say, oh well, there's just one less thing to design. Yeah, but if they're gonna work on everything else, why not do something for the toilet as well? Because they're using the same toilets, what, 4 times now? It would be nice to see some new toilets, and not just the same thing over and over again. Okay, so from there, we have the elevators and stairwell, and back here is human resources. Management, accounting, recruiting. We have offices, fairly unremarkable, and then there's like a bigger office for the head of human resources. Do we need to say much about the decor? We got a black and blue and white. Again with the black and white high contrast color scheme. Black tables. And then the industrial, the high-tech industrial stuff around the walls. Yeah, no, not much to say about it. It is basically as you see it. So the space here, everything's very rectangular, you might notice. So it's just like a rectangles inside a bigger rectangle, except for the elevators. The elevators are turned 45 degrees, and they make the space a little bit more interesting. It's not just squares everywhere. But that's the only interesting part, is the diagonal stairs and elevators, and then everything else is rectangles. Again, we have like the glass and the metal. Very industrial, high-tech industrial. Up here we have programming. We have 2 offices. So we've got programming staff here. Not that many of them, by the way. There's like 4 desks and a lot of. Oh, I guess there's 8 desks here. Oh wait, no, there's 4 there, and no, 2 there and 6 there. Okay, there's 6 in total. Programmers, and then nothing out here. This is a balcony. So if you think about the offices, there's not that much office space. But there's a lot of these balconies. And a lot of hallways and more balconies. So this is like from like a commercial perspective, it's a lot of wasted space. Like it's just a lot of corridors that don't really lead anywhere useful. But remember that this is security. The first function of this structure is security. And from a security perspective, if you imagine you have unauthorized intruders, then there's a lot of like cover for you to shoot at the intruders, right? You're trying to come in here, you have to get past all these spaces, and there's like, it's up, so it's open up there and it's open down there, and so then you have a lot of guards that are able to shoot down at you. And then here, like if you come in unauthorized, you get shot through this open area. And there's like layers and layers, and then all the guards can just come line up at the balconies and start shooting. And so if you think about it that way, it's the space is arranged like a fortress. Like you have an entrance there, a kill zone down here, and then there's just walls and walls and walls and enemies shooting down at you from cover. So actually, even though like you look at it, it doesn't look like a fortress because it's all white and metal and glass, assuming the glass is bulletproof. So you look at it and it looks like, oh, it's just industrial, high-tech industrial aesthetic. But if you think about the arrangement of the spaces, it's like a fortress with tiered defenses going up. So the shape of it gives away what it really is. As we go through the building, do note that beyond the central space, there's a maintenance and utilities on either side. So inside the concrete structure, there's a whole lot of corridors. So if you want to like sneak past the enemies, for gameplay purposes, you want to sneak past the enemies, you can use those corridors. And that's probably the smarter thing to do, because if you get, as I said, if you get caught out here, you just get shot at from every direction at all times. So you want to avoid getting shot at in the middle, if at all possible. And so at the sides, there's all these corridors. You can sneak around, bypass the main security, right? For gameplay purposes, that makes sense. In reality, you wouldn't have spaces like this, I don't think. Just because it's a security liability, right? Going up to the next floor. On the third floor, we continue to have these balconies, right? Yeah, it's just a giant fortress staring down at any intruders. On the third floor, we have a break room on this side. So previously, in other parts of the game, the break room would have warmer lighting and brighter colors. In this building, it doesn't. It's just the same harsh, cold white light, and there's no colors, except, you know, the white and the gray and the dark blue. So this break room is not as friendly as the other break rooms. It's kind of interesting. Oh, look at that cold blue light. Uncomfortable. Alright, another security checkpoint. So there was like a security checkpoint back in the concrete whale, and then you go through layers, and then here's another big security checkpoint. Right next to it is the security office. We have a lot of monitoring stations, we have weapons lockers, right? Although the visibility from here is not that great, is it? When you have a security room, usually you want the security room to be able to see like a lot of the things you're trying to guard. This seems a little bit too closed. This is basically only watching that gate. And then over here there's a head of engineering office. An unremarkable office, and well, actually it's remarkable in the sense that there's very few engineering stuff. There's a few drawings and that's it. That's the same drawings we've seen earlier in the Utelek. That's a kitchen. Another kitchen, it's a bathroom. So that's number 3, going up to floor number 4. We're getting close to the top now. So the back, this is concrete, so the whole foundation is surrounded by concrete, as we said. On this side, client services, account managers, customer support, so just offices again. It's the same, I mean, it's the same office over and over again, right? Like, I guess the layout is a little bit different. But there's really nothing to say about it. Over on this side, we have engineering. And the furniture is a bit different, there's like more computers in here. But again, unremarkable. Just office space. How's this looking back here? So we're pretty much at the top of the fortress now, right? Looking down from the top. We have layers and layers. And from every layer you can see all the way clear down to the elevator. Like imagine this whole place covered with guards shooting at you at the same time. Like focusing fire. So that's what the shape of this structure allows. We're a bit closer. Yeah, no, there's still... Not sure what that is. The structure is unconvincing. That there is unconvincing. What I want to see, okay, so instead of just complaining, what do I want to see? What I want to see is like cables. You know, like a suspension bridge? You have like big cables. And suspension bridge cables is basically small cables, like small threads woven, like kind of tied together into bigger cables, and the bigger cables kind of tied together again. So it's like a big bundle of small wires all kind of wrapped together into like a giant bundle of steel, and then you kind of suspend the steel between two towers, and then you hang the bridge from that. So what I would like to see is like giant steel cables stretching all the way up. And the reason, as I said, is because when you have a cantilever, you need to pull the top and push the bottom to resist the building from trying to fall over. So you need tension on the top, compression on the bottom. And so if there was like a big steel beams, solid steel beams on the bottom, and then big cables on the top, kind of going all the way up the diagonal, then I'd be very happy, right? Then I'd be completely satisfied. Even if steel wouldn't be strong enough to actually hold that properly, yeah, we can fudge that. At least you make an effort to make it look like this structure there, right? That would have made me a lot happier. As it is, I mean, you could say, well, maybe the structure is behind the ceiling. Well, maybe behind the ceiling there's more stuff. Yeah, but I want to see it. Right? I want to see it. Because it's gonna look cool. And it's not frivolous. It looks cool to have that giant, like when you go to a, like when you go walk up to a big suspension bridge and like you see the giant cable kind of curving down. It looks cool, man. And so I feel like there's a missed opportunity here to do a better job with the structure. Like they put those in, and they put the big pipes in. So they understand cooling, they understand liquid cooling for this data servers, but they don't understand large structures, large architectural structures. Anyway, let's continue going up. So at floor 4, and then we go up a little bit more. On the 5th floor we have the executive suite, which is a big glowing cube that you can't see inside. And then there's the funicular that goes up. The inside of the executive suite is hydroponics. So this I just don't understand. I just don't understand what's going on here at all. There's dark wood furniture bits on the ceiling, and like dark wood paneling on some of the walls. And you have pipes in the ground. I presume this is for the hydroponics. And then you have vegetables. What does this have to do with banking? It doesn't, right? What does any of this have to do with banking? I don't understand this office, I really don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like all the walls are completely opaque, you can't see any of the building. Cause look, security, a big part of security is visibility, right? If you can see people trying to sneak in, then they failed. So the fact that the interior here is a big open space and there's a lot of glass, and then you can like see past everything and you can like see the whole space, that's important for security purposes. And then you get to this office and it's just completely closed and they're playing with hydroponics in here. Like they're not doing any banking work, they're not doing any security work, they're growing plants. This office doesn't make any sense to me. And like the wood paneling. What is the wood paneling about? Because Palisade Bank, everywhere else it's just dark grey concrete. Right? You have shiny black, bright white lights, grey concrete is like grayscale, harsh, heavy, somber, serious, and then you get wooden paneling. And this just doesn't fit any of the rest of the bank. So I don't know. I feel like maybe they made this room for something else, and then they just repurposed it without thinking about it. This looks like somebody else's office. This doesn't look like a Palisade Bank office, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and the only good explanation is they just reused an asset that was intended for somebody else. Because this makes absolutely no sense here. Alright, going back outside. So this is the atrium part of the Palisade Blade, and remember we are underwater in the foundations. And as I said, I guess I should step back a little bit. As I said, we are basically in a big fortress. A big fortress, steel and glass, built in a high-tech aesthetic, but the shape of it shows that it is intended to defend against anyone trying to break in. Right, there's layers of security, there's floors, and then there's a lot of areas, a lot of kill zones is what I would call them. A lot of spaces where you're passing underneath and then there's balconies above and there's guards up there watching you, shooting at you. So kill zones, a lot of like spaces like this where they can have cover behind the bulletproof glass and they can lean out and shoot down at you like that, right? So defensive architecture is the shape of it. But the aesthetic of it is high-tech, industrial. Interesting. Interesting mashup between those two things. Alright, so let's take the funicular. Funiculars because they're fun. Oh, big elevator. So it runs on a track like that, and watch this as it turns. Watch that. Oh, very cool. And then there's a window there, you see that there's the water surface. So now we're in the diagonal bit, coming out of the water, heading up to the horizontal bit up there, right? So there's Prague out there in the distance, we are above the water. Very cool. And very cool that they put the window here so you can see where you're going. And then we're at the horizontal bit. Okay. Oh, there it is. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. With the big pipes, as we said, no obvious structure. No obvious structure. Yeah, no, I keep trying to look for it. No, there's no obvious structure, unfortunately. Okay, so now we get to the servers. We've got this grey concrete aesthetic again, but this is obviously not concrete, right? You can see that going into there. These are like panels? Are these steel panels? But they look like concrete. So the idea of the concrete aesthetic is it's big, solid, and heavy, which is secure, right? It's stable and secure is what concrete is supposed to, suggest. But here, it's obviously not concrete, but they put the texture on it, so it's like it's fake concrete. I don't know why. I don't know why they chose to do that. Maybe that's the only dark gray texture they have. They didn't have dark gray metal panels, because these are metal panels, right? Just didn't have that texture. This should be the black shiny stuff, I think. This should be like the shiny black metal. Shiny black, like painted metal. Because there's no, like, you wouldn't put concrete up here. Remember, we're up on the cantilever, right? You can't put a lot of weight on here because it's like, again, this structure is not that stable because it's only held on one side. It's kind of wobbly on the other side. So you don't want to put too much weight on here anyway. So there's no way there's going to be a giant block of concrete up here. But then again, this is like the vault, the bank vault. So you want it to look solid, but there's no way it can be solid because it'll be too heavy. So I mean, I've been complaining about the blade for a long time. Like the fact that it's a cantilever, it's really silly. Structurally, it's really silly. And we can kind of see some of the problems. Is like you're trying to make a vault look secure, but it's a cantilever, so it has to be lightweight. And if it's lightweight, then it's not secure. I'm not sure they really thought this through. But here we are. We're stuck with it. Through this door. This is a room with automated security in it, right? So in the game, I've blown them up. They're gone. They used to be there. So there's turrets on the ceiling, and in the gameplay, you have to sneak through this as the turrets try to kill you. And they've conveniently put a lot of furniture in here, and these columns. They put columns in here. So for gameplay purposes, obviously they have to make it possible for you to sneak through. Because if you can't sneak through, then there's no video game, right? The point of the video game is to break into the vault. If you can't actually break into the vault, then there's no video game. So it has to be possible. But in order to make it possible, they have to put security vulnerabilities like this. Because if you want to have like a proper secure space, what would you do? You'd have turrets on the ceiling and just an empty room. Just nothing in the room. And so there's nowhere for you to hide. You walk in here, the door closes behind you, and it's just you and the turrets and no cover, and you're dead. So if they want to just kill you, that's what they would do. But if they did that, then there wouldn't be a video game, because you would not be able to get through that space. Ever. Right? If they designed the space properly, it would be impossible to get past those turrets without shutting them down first. So in order to make the game playable, they have to put the cover in. But then the cover makes the space completely implausible, because why would you put cover in a space where you're designing the space to stop intruders, right? So there's but this happens with every heist, right? Every video game where you're trying to break into a place, you look at the security and there's obvious security vulnerabilities, there's obvious flaws. And they have to put that in the game, otherwise you can't beat it. You can't beat the level. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about it. if you don't think too hard, it's a fun game, and it's a fun game to play through. But if you think a little bit about it, you realize that it doesn't make any sense to have cover in here, right? Not sure what the deal is with the textured ceiling like that. Part of me wants to say that this is just thoughtless ornamentation. They just, I don't know, the ceiling looks too boring, so we put something up there. But maybe it's not that. Maybe because the turrets are automated, maybe that helps with tracking. Like if you have AI tracking hostile targets, maybe having a texture on the surfaces actually lets the computer recognize what they're looking at better than if there's nothing on the ceiling. Maybe. Not sure. Not sure. There's lights in there too, but I really don't know how efficient those lights could be. They don't seem like they can be efficient. In fact, I don't know what they do. Yeah, no, like the lights. Maybe the lights are to help the computer tracking. It's possible. I don't know. I wouldn't know. On the side there we have what looks like computer servers, but they're not accessible in the game. Alright, moving through. Server area. So this is the main server area. And this is not what a real server looks like. Oh, look at that. So those ceiling panels are the same as those. But now that it's darker, in fact, is it still white, or is it white and... oh, I pressed the wrong button. Is it white and not lit, or is it actually dark? No, those are actually black. So those are black ceiling panels, and then you have the lights like that. That's interesting. So that looks pretty cool. Doesn't mean anything, doesn't do anything, but it looks cool. It looks like stars in the night. But that's because those ceiling panels are black, whereas those are white. And you could easily have the same effect without the texture, so I don't know why the ceiling is textured. I don't know. So the main server area, you have rooms within the larger room. In fact, you can see them here, like the shapes of those. I don't see any practical reason why you would arrange your servers like this. But from a gameplay perspective, it's super interesting because you can sneak around once again. It's gameplay that allows you to sneak around. And each of these rooms on the inside is a little bit of a puzzle. So you have like an entry space, and you come in here, there's a puzzle. You see these, oh, better not step too close. So there's laser tripwires, and then there's a little puzzle trying to get in the middle there. Oh, let's not get caught by the laser tripwires. So each room is a little puzzle, which is interesting for gameplay, but it doesn't make any sense as a data server, right? why does the data server have little tripwire puzzles like that? And again, you have like railings for cover. And up here, there's like little rooms. And so then, when the space is filled with robots, and that's a drone there. When the space is filled with robots, you can kind of sneak around, try and bypass the enemies. And then each of these rooms, once again, there's a little puzzle there. Oh, another laser tripwire puzzle, right, like that. So yeah, it's fun for gameplay. Makes absolutely no sense as a secure data storage server. But you know, video games. We have the pipes again, so the liquid cooling continues. There's the cold pipe going all the way out to the end of the cantilever. And on the other side, the hot pipe coming back. Right, and then those are those computers? Those are computers. So there's computer servers all the way down, apparently. There's still no obvious structure, right? none of this structure looks strong enough to hold up the cantilever. Yeah, no. That's the one big complaint I have, is they didn't even try. They didn't even try to have like structure that looks like it'll be strong enough to hold up the big cantilever. That's my complaint about this level. In here we have the Chief Technical Officer. He's got a bit of an office. Not as much hardware as I would have imagined. And then back here we have like a VR system to access the data in the secure servers. Interesting interface device. Not sure how practical it is, but again, for video game reasons, very cool. Alright, so that's the Palisade Blade. It's fairly straightforward. In terms of layout, it's just one path, right? You come out the subway, go in the big concrete whale, down the stairs, down the elevator, and then you have the 5 levels of the fortress. Get through the fortress, onto the funicular, up the funicular into the automated security part, and then you have the servers. So you just kind of get all the way through that into the servers, and you get to here and you hack into the data. So fairly straightforward. It's just like one line with a bunch of challenges along the way for you to get through. So gameplay wise, it's pretty one-dimensional, although there's a lot of interesting stuff along the way. Architecturally, we have the return of the dark concrete aesthetic of the Palisade Banking Corporation. Although once you get to the foundations, you find a more modern, a more high-tech industrial steel and glass factory aesthetic going on. So this aesthetic, like I keep calling it high-tech industrial aesthetic. I don't know if you're familiar. If you go into like a chip-making factory, they usually like very clean, very bright. So there's very bright lights, very clean surfaces because they need to keep the dust off of the microchips as they make them. So everything's super clean. Everybody's in the clean suits, completely wrapped up. And then there's like a lot of steel and glass, basically things that don't create a lot of dust. So that's the aesthetic, right? Or you go into like a high-tech car factories these days. You think, oh, cars are kind of dirty. No. Like a modern car factory, a similar thing. Like it's super bright, and they try to keep things as clean as possible, even though it's cars. Yeah. So a modern high-tech factory is what this looks like. Interesting that they made that choice because, like, in terms of aesthetics, it's completely different from their corporate decor, which is the concrete, right? The dark gray, high contrast, black and white, and concrete. So this, I suggest this, like, I guess this suggests that the Palisade Blade is not where their clients come, because it's more functional and less performative. The other Palisade Bank that we looked at earlier, it's more performative, right? And it's not as functional. So this is more functional, less performative. And then the data vault is just video game stuff. Doesn't make any sense as a data vault. Like a real data vault looks like that, right? It's just rows and rows of computers. That's what an actual data server looks like. It's just rows and rows of computers. The stuff out there is like rooms, puzzle rooms. It's okay, video game stuff. And that's pretty much the whole Palisade Blade. Like, it's a solid level, and I'm glad in the DLC they finally let us visit the Palisade Blade, because you see this thing in the skyline and you're always thinking, well, I want to see what that's like up close. And here we're up close. So that's cool. It's good that they put it in. And it's good that there's like a big open space inside the building, a big towering architecture. So that's like the scale of it, the idea of this massive thing. We like that. Um, and then the only thing that I'm still disappointed in is we don't see the structure. We don't see like how this thing actually stays up. Although I don't know if there's any good way to do the structure because I just don't think it's possible. Like they put it in the video game, I don't think you can actually build something like this in the real world. Certainly not with current materials. Maybe with some future technology we might invent stronger materials. But I would have liked to see an attempt at least to show how the structure works, like how this building actually stays up despite it just being a big cantilever, you know, across the sky. It's a shame that we don't see it. I suspect that there's no structural engineers working on the game development team, because why would there be? And I don't think they knew how to do it either. Because the thing is, a lot of the time, you have artists, right? Not even architects, but like artists. And if you ask them to, you know, design a space, they go into the internet and they do some research. And they like look at pictures, and then they learn from that, and then they put that in the game. But since there's no the blade doesn't exist in the real world, there's no real world pictures to look at. So they can't just copy somebody else's solution. So in order to give you a proper solution for how to build this cantilever, they would have to like actually have structural engineering knowledge, because it doesn't exist. I can't think of anything like this in the real world to help them come up with a design for this. Come up with like a plausible structure for this. So that's probably why it's like they did the research and they just couldn't find any examples, right? Yeah. Oh well. Can't have everything, I guess. So that's it for this video. In the next video, it'll be the last one next time. The final DLC, we are going to the Penley T. Housefather Correctional Facility, also known as the Penthouse. Penley T. Housefather, Penthouse. It's a prison. And it's quite a good one, actually. So we'll see you next time in the Penthouse.